Hi everyone, hope all is well. I hope it doesn't sound weird in the background. I am in the gym right now. I literally couldn't sleep. I got high. I'm not gonna lie, I got high as fuck last night and went to bed like very early. And then I ended up waking up like very early in the morning, and now I'm just like at my apartment's gym. And so, yeah, just here wanting to reminisce about a few things. One of them being upward mobility and how women, especially black women, can use that, use sex work in order to achieve that. And by the way, if I sound like I'm grunting or anything, I'm literally working out as we speak. um, so ignore all the background noise and just bear with me. Um, in that, I've noticed that I think the reason why men hate sex work so much is not only because they want to control our sexuality, yada yada, this and that. We've already talked about that ad infinitum, but but of course they don't really hate sex work because they secretly indulge in it. But that's another talk for another day. But the reason why that they hate sex work is mainly because it's the quickest way, one of the quickest ways for women to get income and upward mobility that there is out there. And that's why men get so angry whenever like see a sex worker or a woman that they don't automatically have access to. It's not only because of the lack of access and because they want to control her sexuality, but it's also the knowledge of she can easily monetize this in comparison to him. Now we know that there's some dudes on OnlyFans or whatever and all this other stuff, but it's a female, very highly female dominated field, and of course we know why. It's because of the class differentials between men and women, especially with black women and women of color or what have you. And one thing that I've seen a lot from women that I'm very close with is in the field is that they were able to pay off loans that they had. They were able to pay off big things that they wanted to do and accomplish and stuff like that, all without being forced to be married to a man in order to achieve that, all without even, on top of that, this is the second point I want to make, they were able to do that without even having to necessarily go to college. They can. I highly recommend going to college just so you can have a safety net. But they didn't have to. And when they did go to college, they didn't have to necessarily get a work. The key word here is have. What men want, like, ultimately is for you to stay at home and make babies for them, cook and clean and all that shit. We already know that. But then on top of that, even if you do go in the work field, they want it to make it as hard for you as possible to elevate in any dimension, especially in fields that I'm involved in, like tech and science and things like that. I definitely went to school for that. I wanted to be that ever since middle school. I do that on top of sex work. Both of them make very lucrative money, six figures from the tech job, but then also on top of that, like the extra money, a lot of money, from sex work, depending on the season. And what men really want to do is that they want to trap you in the system. And even if you are tricked into certain, and be tricked into certain girl boss narratives that they like to accentuate just so you can be stuck kind of working for them. And even if they include you in certain areas, they of course wouldn't like put you to the level of CEO. And even if you are in the level of CEO, you're beholden to whichever other people that you are owning the thing with, or the people that you share stocks with and all of this other stuff. So I've just seen women who, like, under the guise of like of improvement and girl power and this and that, discuss like different things that they had to do in the field. But at the end of the day, it may seem like a success story, but the unfortunate reality is that unless they completely own it, which in this modern day, you don't really own anything. And I want you guys to realize that sooner rather than later, you don't really own anything unless you have land, property, or assets or whatever. And even then, whoever owns more of that than you is kind of has the control. And unless women do really shitty things like oppress other women for their own benefits. Like I've heard about this one story in this one tech company that my friend, who's a lawyer, was actually doing a case in. It was about this one woman that like realized how little she was getting paid in comparison to her male counterparts, and it turns out that all of the women in the company were being paid less that way. And so she went around to these women and telling them to essentially advocate for either a higher pay or to leave the company to where they got better paid. And she did that for like, I think nearly half of the women. They left the company essentially and found places that would pay them significantly more, that is, equivalent to their talent and equivalent to, let's say, the male counterparts there. But she approached one woman that she didn't know was actually co-owner of one of the owners of the company, and that had a lot of stock invested into the company. And so what she didn't know was when she approached this woman, in order to, sorry, I know this sounds off topic, but bear with me, when she approached this woman to get to inform her about her lower pay, what that woman ended up doing, that she tried to warn, ended up screwing her over. Because the thing is, the last woman that she warned before she was caught and essentially fired and essentially sued after the fact, was because this woman owned a huge share of the company, and by underpaying other women, because she knew that the men that she worked with wouldn't allow the underpaying of other men, maybe other minority men, but not like, definitely not women. Like women will always be like definitely women, like women will always be like the first target. She knew that underpaying them will give more profit to her at the end of the day. So unless like women do like really shitty things like that and essentially act like males, at the end of the day, you're always going to be beholden to somebody. And I feel like sex work ultimately does kind of give women power in order to not be beholden to that. Now, we can talk about other things like how essentially, OnlyFans essentially gives you a fraction of what you really earn, and all this stuff. Ultimately, I believe that there should be, what I would want in the future is something owned by sex workers by sex workers. Because at the end of the day, I still kind of see it as pimping to some extent, if like men at the end of the day at the top that own the site are the ones that are getting a share of your profit from all of these women. Like I still see that as like pimping, but just like with a lot of extra steps, and where the women do get significantly more benefits as opposed to the traditional kind. I still would want, something owned by women by women. But anyways, all of that was to say that essentially sex work is very helpful in upward mobility if you don't want to feel dependent on men or men-owned companies for, paying off loans, to get the education that you want, to get, to work in certain places that you want. You will always perpetually have a safety net, apart from, being beholden to this weird system that has been rigged against you anyway. This is not to say that like sex work is really, really easy. Well, I guess it depends on the kind that you're engaged with. I would say even the digital one has like a lot of hard work, depending again on the kind of one that you do. But marketing is kind of, tricky for some people. This thing is a lot more intuitive for some of us more than others. I get that. And that's something that should be acknowledged. At the same time, I do always see it as something that women could get into, if they don't want to be dependent. And so I guess that's all I had to say. This may have been like a pointless video, but I just had to get that off my chest. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot in terms of that. And by the way, when I say sex work, it could be by digital means. It could be like having a sugar daddy, even though you're not necessarily obligated to have sex with your sugar daddy. At least that's how the relationship should be. Like, you shouldn't be obligated to have sex with him in order to get the benefits that you want. If that's the arrangement that you have, then whatever. But like, even if you're not having sex with the sugar daddy, it's still sex work because your sex appeal, spending time with you, talking with you, is something that they wouldn't just do with the average woman. So I do classify that as sex work. I feel like sugar babies that are lying about that. I mean, that's an interesting kind of coke, but whatever. Whether it's escorting, whether it's I don't know. You guys can mention different kinds in the comments. I don't care. But I'm just saying, women using their sexuality, their beauty, um, which is the oldest profession of all time, should be something we shouldn't be ashamed about. Should be something that we should be happy that makes men very angry. Whenever men are angry about something in mass, you know it's because that they lose out in benefit in one way. And I feel like so far it's only been discussed about how they lose out on access to our bodies when they really want it and can't afford it and this and that. But it's never really been discussed on how it's one of the quickest way for upward mobility for many women, and how that in particular makes men very, very angry. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I hope you guys have a good one and talk to you later.